My name is Una Kelly. I'm the marketing manager here in Law. We'll be covering all of the master's options in that we offer in UCD. I'm going to be the moderator and I'll be handling the Q&A later on. If you have any questions, if you could add them to the Q&A box rather than the chat box, that would be really handy. And I'll either put them directly to our speakers, or if possible, or if I have the time, I'll respond to you directly. However, I would say if you have any questions that aren't answered, please email us on lawpostgraduate@ucd.ie. So today's focus is on 4 of our master's degrees, and we have 4 of our program directors from each of the programs. So Dr. Mark Coen will be speaking about the Masters in Common Law, the MCL, which is our 2-year conversion degree, and this is suitable for people who don't have an undergraduate degree in law but are looking for a law qualification. Professor Ian O'Donnell will then speak about criminology and criminal justice, which is his area of specialism. And in this, we offer both an LLM for law students and an MSc for graduates in other programs. Dr. Máire will talk about the MSc International Law and Business, which is suitable for law graduates, business graduates, and finance and economics graduates. Dr. Justin Jütte will talk about the LLM, Intellectual Property and Information Technology, which he is Program Director for. We have a fairly diverse group of students today joining this webinar. So some of you already have an offer for a program, and some of you are only finding out about the options. So not every presentation will be relevant to you all. But if you could bear with us, then we will have Q&A at the end. You can put your question to us. Or if you'd like to, as I said, email us afterwards, lawpostgraduate@ucd.ie, with any questions you might have. Some questions will be more relevant to our colleagues in UCD Global, who you can email on internationalinquiries@ucd.ie. I'll put these emails anyway in the chat. And with that, I'm going to hand over then to Dr. Coen, who will be talking about the Masters in Common Law.
Thanks very much, Una, and hello to everyone joining the call. So as Una said in her introduction there, the Masters in Common Law program, or the MCL for short, is our graduate conversion taught masters. So I know many of you are on the call to hear about various LLM programs, because you have an undergraduate degree in law. So apologies to you while you're waiting to hear about those programs. But for those of you who are coming from a non-law undergraduate background, the MCL, I think, is a very attractive option. It's a 2-year full-time conversion masters. What does that look like in practice? Well, every year we have about 25 or 30 students on the MCL program from a variety of disciplinary backgrounds. And I must say, I always find that fascinating, the breadth and variety of the backgrounds of our MCL students from all kinds of undergraduate programs. Some maybe backgrounds that one would traditionally associate as adjacent to law, like history and politics, for example, but also people coming to us from very different backgrounds like nursing, music, the sciences, and so on. So as I say, there tends to be a class of about 25 or 30, and a feature of the MCL class is that the students tend to really gel together very well and form, an identifiable MCL cohort within the school. In terms of the delivery of teaching, it's a 2-year program, as we've said. In the first year, students are doing on the MCL are doing the sort of core building block legal subjects, so the likes of contract law, constitutional law, criminal law, which I teach, European Union law, and so on. So there isn't really choice in the first year MCL curriculum. There are core subjects that you effectively have to do. And in terms of the delivery of teaching on the program, an MCL student will attend lectures in each of their modules, and for those modules, for those lectures, they will be with the undergraduate students taking that module. But then the MCL students will have additional teaching in each module in the form of seminars. So basically, for every module of 22 or 24 hours of lecture time, you will also have 8 hours of seminars. So they're typically done as 4 2-hour seminars per module per trimester. And I suppose the seminars usually taken by the person giving the lectures or some of the lectures, often the module coordinator, are, I would say, a defining feature of the MCL. So you get to work as an MCL class in a small group situation with an academic member of staff on seminar materials. So I think that's kind of a unique selling point of the MCL. Another one I would say is that it's basically a way of getting what is, to all intents and purposes, a law degree within 2 years. Is quite an efficient way of doing that. It's, I suppose, a relatively intense program, but I think most who have done it have found it manageable and enjoyable. And it's a very well recognized and long running program. So students who do the program go on to a variety of careers afterwards. Many would go into law firms as solicitors or work independently as solicitors, and also we've students who've gone to the bar afterwards. But again, I'd always be keen to stress in relation to any law program that there are a variety of careers that one can have afterwards, not confined to the more obvious vocational careers as a lawyer. But I think, something like the MCL degree would be of immense value if you were considering going into many other areas of life, such as the public service, media, working in an NGO, to name just a few. So in the second year then of your MCL, you will still have mandatory subjects that you have to do, but you will also have room for choice. So you will be able to pick modules in areas that interest you. So you might decide, for example, to do the human rights module, the jury trials module, whatever it might be. So you will have, even though it's 2 years and you have to cover the core subjects, there is space within it to pursue optional subjects that you're interested in as well. And that can include, for example, doing a research module or dissertation in your second year if you'd like to pursue, an independent research topic on an area that's of interest to you, and you'd like, the chance to hone your independent legal research and writing skills. You can do that. So I think they're kind of the main features of the program. Obviously, you have access to all the facilities of the Sutherland School of Law that every law student with us would have. And that includes access to, a dynamic suite of extracurricular activities like the student legal service, the Law Society, mooting opportunities, and so on. And certainly the Law Review and certainly MCL students get involved in those activities as well. So the MCL students are very much embedded in the school and generally integrate very well and avail of all the opportunities that there are, not only on the program but in the school generally. So I think I'll leave it there in terms of an overview of the MCL program. No doubt I've forgotten something very obvious, but somebody will remind me or pick it up in a question later on. So I'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I think we're going to hand over to Professor Ian O'Donnell now, who's going to speak about criminology and criminal justice.
Brilliant. Thanks, Amelia and Una. So I'm delighted to be here on the webinar today, and it's great to see such a good turnout. I'm just going to follow up from what Mark had to say with a few words about who takes the program, the LLM or MSc in Criminology and Criminal Justice. And then I make a few observations on the structure of the program and how we assess the students who come to study criminology at UCD. And then I want to say a little bit about the UCD Institute of Criminology and Criminal Justice, which is housed in the School of Law. So who takes the course? We get a fantastic mix of students on this program. We've had everybody from the chairman of the parole board to ex-prisoners to practicing barristers and solicitors to people who've just completed their undergraduate studies and are keen to do something else for a year. So it's a year full-time, 2 years part-time. We've had people who work in the Justice Department take the course as well, and it's a really international mix. So I teach a module at the moment on crime and society, and I have students from Australia, from the US, from Germany, Sweden, Ireland. So any module you take, you're likely to have people from a variety of different backgrounds and from a variety of different jurisdictions, and that all feeds into the education experience in a really positive way. The classes are pretty small, so typically 15 or 20. They're discussion based. And it was the first master's of its kind taught at a university in Ireland. So there's a real kind of a pedigree to this program. If you come in with the degree in law, you exit with the LLM. And if you come in with another degree, you exit with the MSc. People come with degrees in history and sociology and social policy, economics. Some more recently have come to the degree with an undergraduate qualification in criminology and criminal justice. So really, really wide scope there. So that's who takes the course. What about the structure? How does it work? It's 90 credits. Everybody writes a dissertation. That's 30 credits. You start thinking about that in the first semester, and you write it up over the summer when you've finished the other modules that you'll be doing. And we train you to write it. It's 12 to 15,000 words. It's a major piece of research. You pick something that you're interested in, and you're allocated an advisor, and that individual helps you structure your research question and carry out the project. So I'm advising 3 students at the moment, and just to give you a sense of the range of topics that people cover, one of them is looking at media portrayals of school shootings in the US. Another's looking at how gender-based violence is responded to in Germany compared to Ireland. And a third is doing a comparative study of residential schools where children were forcibly taken from their parents. So if you take this program, you'll do a dissertation. Everybody does. That's 30 credits. And then you'll take 6 modules. They're 10 credits each. And there are 2 core modules. So in the first semester, you'll do a module called Advances in Criminological Theory, just to give you a grounding in the main theoretical perspectives in the field. And in the second, that's taught by my colleague Deirdre Healy. And in the second semester, you'll do a module that I teach called the PRISM Contemporary Challenges. So everybody does the dissertation, everybody does those 2 modules. That's 50 of your 90 credits. Then you pick 4 more. And those 4 are from quite a long list: victims in criminal justice, coercive confinement theory and practice, organized violence in society, comparative perspectives on crime and society, the law of armed conflict, gender harm and justice, white-collar crime, global perspectives on resistance and rehabilitation, evidence-based policy making, climate change, law and policy. So you'll pick 4 from that long list. Most people do 3 each semester. Sometimes for timetabling reasons or what have you, people do 4 one semester and 2 the next. And there are a small number of modules not on the list that I just called out there that are restricted to law graduates because they require a certain level of legal understanding. But most of the students who take the course pick from that list, whether they're coming in with law degrees or sociology degrees or history degrees or what have you. And it's a comparative course. So people who come to Ireland are interested to learn about what crime and punishment look like in a small jurisdiction with a relatively low rate of crime and a relatively modest, although rapidly increasing number of prisoners and heavy centralisation of policing and probation and the courts and so on. So if you're interested, I'd really encourage you to have a look at the module descriptors online, because we put a good bit of thought into them, and you'll get a really good sense of what each module on the programme has to offer and how it's assessed. So there aren't any end of semester exams. So if you're coming straight from college, you might be used to, at the end of your programme, doing a set of terminal exams in a big exam hall somewhere. We don't do that here. We've a real mixture of assessment methods. So some modules you'll get an essay, maybe a 5,000-word essay. Another module, you might have to complete a reflective journal. You might have a book review to do, or a short report, or you might have to do a group presentation. So a real variety of assessment methods, but no final exams. So that's a little bit about who does the course and the structure of the course and assessment. And I just want to finish up by saying we have an Institute of Criminology and Criminal Justice in the law school in UCD, and it's the first institute of its kind in Ireland and the longest established. And students who come to take the Masters in Criminology and Criminal Justice are very welcome to join in the activities of the Institute of Criminology, the seminars and the conferences and so on that we organise. And members of the Institute of Criminology and Criminal Justice have expertise across a wide range of areas: criminal justice history, desistance and rehabilitation, probation and alternatives to imprisonment, sentencing, street crime, youth justice, prisons, punishment, the death penalty, and so on. So there are lots of scholars in the school actively working in these areas, and they bring that research into their teaching, and that's really a kind of an important aspect of the programme that we offer. If you have any questions about the programme, feel free to get in touch. Una's given you the contact details there. Or if you feel you'd like to speak to a student who's recently taken the programme or who's currently on it, that won't be a problem either. So if you want to have a chat with myself directly, that's fine. If you want to get in touch with the school and see if it would be possible to talk to a student and get a sense from them of what they've made of it, that'd be fine too. So that's all I've got to say, unless there are any specific questions, and we can take them at the end of the session. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Ian. There are some questions coming in, and there's one related to criminology, but if it's okay, we'll leave it till the end because there are also some for the MCL, and I'd like to get the presentations done first. So I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Máire Shúilleabháin. She's the Programme Director on the MSc International Law and Business. I mentioned that is our programme that is suitable for law graduates and also business, finance and economics graduates. So I'll hand you over to Máire now. Thank you.
Thanks, Una. Hi, everyone. So as Una said, I'm the Programme Director for the MSc in International Law and Business. And this programme, like the criminology programmes that Ian has just been describing, is also very mixed. We have students from a law background, a business background, and students from all over the world. So I was just thinking this year, we have a student from South Africa, we have a student from Nigeria, students from India, students from Ireland, a student from Turkey. So it's a very international programme with students from a mixture of disciplinary backgrounds. So it's taught over the course of a year. So you start out in September. In the autumn term, you take 3 law modules. So you pick from a list of law modules. They're mostly commercial law modules that dovetail then with the business modules that you take in the spring trimester. So this year students chose international tax law, European competition law, copyright law, data protection law, those kinds of subjects in the autumn trimester. And the classes are taught usually in small groups of maybe 20, 30 students. Usually you have prior reading, and the classes are very interactive. So you're expected to come prepared and to contribute to the class discussion. And then assessments are due in over the course of the trimester. Some do involve exams at the end of the trimester. Then in the spring term then, our students take 1 law module here at the law school. Again, there's a long list of law modules to choose from. I'm actually involved in teaching 2 of the modules myself. In the spring term, I teach cross-border litigation, and I teach half of trademark law. But in that spring trimester, our students are mostly down in the business school, which is on a separate campus down near the sea, so just a couple of miles away from the Belfield campus where the law school is. And there's a very regular bus service between the two. And I must say that the business campus is a particularly beautiful old campus. And Again, students have a choice of modules in the business school, and many of these dovetail very nicely with the law modules on offer in the law school. So that allows the program to be truly interdisciplinary. So for example, this year students can choose modules in entrepreneurship, which maybe dovetails with patent law, global competitive strategies, which complements the first trimester modules in competition law, international financial management, which maybe complements tax law. Then there is a module in sustainable production. And then next year, we're hoping we will have also a module in environmental law that will tie in nicely with that business module. Also at the business school this year, there's brand management, which complements the module in trademark law that I teach here at the law school. So that's the second trimester. So again, students will have 6 hours of teaching. So 2 hours in each of those 3 subjects, 2 business subjects down in the business school and 1 law subject here in the law school. In the second trimester, students are also getting started on their dissertation. So they will be consulting with their supervisor, also with their program director. They will do a presentation with the other international law and business students and get feedback on their proposal, and then begin to develop their research plan with their supervisor. And then in the summer term, so once the spring trimester assessments are out of the way in May, usually at that stage then students get started in earnest working on their dissertation, writing up their dissertation, which they then submit in August. So the academic year in the programme runs from September right through to the following August. And the 3 law modules in the first trimester are each worth 10 credits. Then in the second trimester, the 2 business subjects and the law subject, again, each worth 10 credits. And then the dissertation is worth 30 credits. It's usually a dissertation of 12 to 15,000 words. So a significant piece of research. And we think that students learn an awful lot from having to conduct a significant independent piece of research. So basically, students are busy throughout the academic year with their classes, doing the reading, preparing for classes, and also with many careers events on campus, social events on campus, sporting activities on campus as well. In terms of careers, students often ask, well, what careers are available to me when I've completed this programme? And we've done a survey of recent graduates of the programme, and that the survey suggests that maybe, as you would expect, graduates go on to a range of careers in law and business. So some graduates have gone on to work in commercial law firms, other law firms, also in professional services firms, including EY, KPMG, also in banking, in tech companies, in public administration, in financial services. So our graduates have gone on to a whole range of different careers, mostly in the domains of law and business. So I don't think there's anything else I'll say at this juncture, but very happy to answer any questions, or likewise, like Ian said, if anyone wants to get in touch with me directly, I'm very happy to have a chat with you about the programme and give you a more detailed sense of what it involves, or put you in contact with existing students. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Máire. Just to say that the questions are flying in, and that's great. Thank you for that. Some people have asked specifically about programs that we aren't addressing here in detail. That's the LLM in Human Rights and International Commercial Law. Please do email us on lawpostgraduate@ucd.ie. As I mentioned, that's the email where we will funnel any of your inquiries. And what we can do is we can put you in touch with an academic who teaches on those programs. If you don't find, I mean, we're hoping that you will have, you'll be gleaning plenty of information about how the school operates and how we approach study here. But if you have specific questions on those particular programs, you may like to speak to an academic on that program specifically. And with that, I'm going to hand over then to Dr. Jütte, and he teaches on the LLM program that we will be discussing today, which is IP and IT, or intellectual property and information technology. Thanks, Justin.
Well, thank you very much, Una. So as Una introduced, I'm the course director of the LLM in Intellectual Property and Information Technology Law. But also, because there are so many questions coming in on the precise question, I want to give you an insight into the structure and the course that an LLM takes that is a pure LLM, so a master legum, a degree that is only focusing on law and that is not interdisciplinary. And all our LLMs have a relatively similar structure, in the sense that there are a set of core modules and then there are all the other modules. But an LLM that has a specialization requires students to take at least 4 of the modules, of the 6 modules you'll be taking throughout your LLM. That excludes the dissertation module, of course, in the core area of this LLM. So if you go to our website and look into the specifications of the respective LLM that you're considering, you will see a set of core modules, and 4 of the modules that you are selecting will have to come from this suite of modules. For example, if you take the LLM in Intellectual Property and Information Technology Law, you will find core modules such as copyright law, patent law on the intellectual property side, and also trademark law, of course. And on the information technology side, you will find courses such as online regulation, cyber crimes, and platform regulation. And from the modules that you have to take from the core suite, these are the ones you want to look at. And for the remaining modules, you can take additional modules from this pool of core modules, but you can then also, of course, select any other module that we're offering within the law school. So I always encourage my students to take subjects from other areas, such as basic human rights law, international arbitration, so dispute resolution, or private international law, to increase their portfolio, but also get an insight into other areas of the law. So this is the basic setup of all our pure LLMs, the LLMs that are focusing only on legal courses. My LLM in particular is one that focuses obviously on the technology side of the law, and we have divided it into 2 larger areas: intellectual property and what we refer to historically information technology law. Common among these courses is there are a couple of issues, a couple of strands that penetrate all these modules, because we heavily base, because we are in Dublin, our teaching on European Union law. That doesn't mean you have to have a full understanding of EU law before you join us here at the Sutherland School of Law. But that means there are certain issues that are very, very pertinent in the European Union: the rule of law, fundamental rights, but of course also contemporary technological phenomena such as artificial intelligence and blockchain. And we address these in all our modules. Of course, we also have specialized modules such as AI regulation that then dive deeper into these specific issues. And depending on the module, we experiment with a number of assessment methodologies, also to pay respect to the fact that our students are recruited from a number of different jurisdictions. We want to make sure that you find nice, but also a diverse set of assessment methodologies. But it also means that you will find in our courses students from literally all over the world, from India, from China, from the African continent, from Latin America, and of course also from many European countries. And that really enriches your classroom experience, particularly when you talk about new technological phenomena, new online services that don't only have a national or regional dimension, but that of course have an international or global dimension. Nowadays, when we talk, for example, about online censorship, we talk about a number of jurisdictions and a number of approaches. And this is also something we want to integrate into our teaching. So you will not only be exposed to an Irish or European perspective, but we also take examples and discuss laws from other areas of the world. And of course, the richness of a classroom in terms of the jurisdictional diversity really contributes to this specific experience. Now, one question that has been popping up in the chat, and my colleagues have addressed them already to a certain extent, is the question of what you will be doing after the LLM, in particular if you don't want to qualify as a barrister or solicitor here in Ireland, or work in that profession in other parts of the European Union. And here, IP and IT offers a variety of opportunities that are sometimes a bit more difficult to find, but of course we have an infrastructure here at UCD that helps you to identify appropriate jobs, but also develop an understanding of the Irish job markets. So many of my former students, for example, now work in areas such as content moderation, in-house counsel here in Irish tech companies, or potentially also the pharma industry if you're more leaning towards patent law. But it also means that if you want to stay in Ireland on a 2-year stayback visa, looking for these job opportunities, something that you want to do from the very beginning when you come to Ireland. And we will be running career events, we'll be running counseling events. We have a dedicated USD careers networks that helps you to understand how the job market here in Ireland works, specifically in the area of law and tech. At the end of any LLM, at the end of my LLM, of course, you will be required to write a dissertation. That's the academic part of our education here, and you will then be given a supervisor who will guide you, of course, through the process. But there we always encourage students also to look into something they're really, really interested in, not necessarily that they've been studying so far, but you can again use this to broaden your horizons and make the fullest experience out of your LLM here. With that, I will stop for the moment, but I'm looking forward to the questions you still might be having.
Thanks, Justin. That was very interesting. So what, we're at 3:30 now. We've actually got a lot of questions here, so I'm going to move through them, and please do keep typing questions as we go. I'm going to start off with, there's a couple of questions, well, a number of questions actually for Dr. Mark Coen. Somebody is saying, a very good question. Put my camera back on. For the MCL, do you have any advice for somebody coming from a non-law background to prepare in advance of their first semester?
It's a good question, yes. And we do have an online course that we can make available, Introduction to the Irish Legal System. It's an online it's called a module, but I mean, it's not credit bearing, but we can make that available and do make it available to students before they start. And it basically is a series of short recordings accompanied by sets of slides that give students who wouldn't be familiar with law, not having studied it before, gives them a sense of things like the court structure, the operation of the doctrine of precedent, and stuff like that. So there are resources like that available when you register. And again, you feel free to contact me by email for access to those resources if in the few months before you're coming to us. So that would be off the top of my head the kind of most relevant resource, but I'm sure there are others as well that I'd probably think of if you wanted to send me an email.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you another MCL question, Mark, and then we move on to my other colleagues. So somebody is asking, is it possible to access the timetable from previous academic years to get an understanding of the lectures, so tutorial hours per week? I guess, I mean, it's pretty well the same from year to year, so it's really a question about the structure of the program.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say I'm familiar with the student timetable per se. I'm more familiar with my own timetable. But I'm sure that is something we could make available. It's not a request I've had before, but I'm sure it's one we could facilitate. Yes. So I'm sure my colleague Niamh McCabe could help with that.
Yeah. Okay, and then there's a question for Máire, which is how does the MSc in International Law and Business compare to the MSc in Law and Finance in TCD, in your opinion? I'm not sure that it's something we offer opinions on, really.
No, as far as I know, it's a fairly similar program, obviously an excellent university as well, Trinity is, but I don't know too much about the Trinity program, so I don't think it's probably right for me to comment, but I think they are broadly similar programs, you know, students taking a combination of law and business subjects and completing a dissertation.
Okay, and participant has asked a question about fees there. I was in the process of typing an answer, but I wasn't fast enough. Just to say that the MSc Criminology and Criminal Justice, that must have been an oversight, but the figures will be the same year on year. So if it's part-time, if it's 5470 for 1 year, it's 5470 for the other year. The only thing is there's a small increase per annum. There could be 3 or 4% increase, but it's roughly that same. It's not like you're landed with a huge fee for 1 year and then the following year is reduced. It's effectively the same year on year. There were some questions then, which I know Ian very kindly answered there about career prospects in the research domain for criminology and criminal justice for non-EU students. Would you like to talk about that, Ian, in any more detail?
Yeah, no problem. So students go into a wide range of different careers afterwards. I'm just thinking back over the last few cohorts. One of our students was a solicitor. When he did the program, he became a judge. Others have gone to work in the prison service, the Department of Justice, NGOs of one kind or another. And some of them who are law graduates complete their studies and become solicitors or barristers. So very, very diverse in terms of the career pathways that follow from the program.
Okay, and then there was a question that you answered to where somebody was asking about attending modules or classes outside of their course in the School of Law. Now, you answered in relation to criminology that you would also be taking classes in sociology and politics. And I think that's true of a lot of our masters, like, for example, the MSc in environmental law and climate law. You know, a lot of the modules will be taken with other schools as well. So depending on the program in question, would I be correct in that? If that may be a case with you also, Justin, in IP and IT. There are other schools that offer modules on the program.
Do you want to go first, Ian?
Can't hear you, Ian. We've lost your sound. That's strange.
So shall I jump in here while Ian fixes his audio? So he has lost his voice, technologically speaking. So yes, in principle, you can take courses from other schools. It's always advisable then to consult with the program director. So from my perspective, if you want to take a class on in computer sciences, I'm always in favor of it, but we don't have really strict rules on this. If you want to take a class in veterinary sciences, I'd be more skeptical about this. But of course, this is also something we will then have to negotiate on a one-to-one basis with the respective schools to ensure that you have access to the respective modules. In the same sense that we do admit students from non-law schools into our classes on an ad hoc basis. But that's a conversation you really want to have then with your course director and our programs administrator when you join us here at the Sutherland School of Law.
Great. And Justin, while I have you there too, I just wanted to ask you a question then in relation to AI as part of your program. I know you introduced something this year, so maybe you tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm not running away, don't worry. Well, AI is one of these things that emerged in the legal profession over the last 5 to 7 years, essentially. And we've been slowly integrating issues on AI, obviously, in every course. It's relevant throughout our curriculum, whether you talk about copyrightability of AI output under copyright law, patentability under patent law, who is an inventor, who is an author for these purposes under intellectual property law, but also, of course, the widespread use of artificial intelligence technologies for things like content moderation, online policing, and so on and so forth. So you'll find traces of AI in every model because we teach at the cutting edge of our science. Now, we are not only teachers, but also researchers, and we bring our experience, we bring our research, of course, also into the classroom. But in a technology such as AI, we thought it absolutely necessary to have a dedicated course where we don't look through a different area onto AI as a part of the discipline. but we also look at AI from a central point of view. And that's the model AI regulation, where we discuss, of course, new regulatory approaches, such as the European AI Act, and also other initiatives around the globe. And then we look into a number of sectors where AI actually is being applied, such as education, such as the health sector, or the use of AI in the legal profession. But it's one of these phenomena that we cannot avoid, we don't want to avoid, and you will find traces of that in the majority of courses, but we also give it center stage in some of other modules.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to bring Mark back in again because we have quite a lot of questions about the MCL and I'm trying to address them here. Somebody mentions the dissertation. If you choose the research module for the MCL, does it count as 2 modules?
Yeah, so, sorry, I'm recovering from a cold. Excuse me. Yeah, so as far as I know, it counts for 2 modules from memory, and I think the length of the dissertation is 5,000 words. I'm subject to correction on that, but I'm 99% sure that that's the case.
Okay, and then the next, it's part of the same question then about scholarships. Do you have to put through a formal application? If this relates to the MCL, no is the answer, but you must have applied by the 31st of May. Anyone who's applied by the 31st of May is in consideration for our scholarships. And then is the MCL all end of term exams, or are there other forms of assessment, Mark?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So there's a variety of assessments. Certainly end of semester exams feature, and there are also assignments as well. So it's a mix, I would say.
Okay, great. And when does registration open for the Masters in Common Law? I can answer that. It's been open since the 1st of October, and we already have a large number of applicants. So I would suggest, if you're interested in that, to apply sooner rather than later. Okay, there's a question then about module selection. Máire, if you want to just address that, how people select modules. Do they seek advice, or how would they normally go about it for the first trimester and the second trimester?
So students actually select the modules themselves online, but they do often come to see the program director. They don't have to, but if students want to steer, they can come talk to the program director before they choose their module. We also have, as well, at the start of September, when students have arrived, we have an informal meeting where students can ask questions about modules as well, if they don't want to have a one-to-one meeting with the program director. And then some students just make their own choices and don't bother coming to talk to me about what they want to do. Also, there's a bit of wriggle room in the first week or 2 of term. So you might start a module on a Monday morning and decide it's not for you. And usually you can switch then into another module if you decide you'd prefer to do some other module instead. We're also hoping on the MSc to expand the range of modules on offer next year. I'm working at the moment with the Associate Dean on expanding the range of modules on the MSc program.
Okay, and there's a question there about IP and IT and whether the, I'm just trying to call it a bit here again, whether the modules are available online, or lectures are available online for somebody who's working and wants to do it part-time.
I can answer the question. If you permit me, I'll also mop up some of the other questions that I think I want to answer. So as a general, we leave it up to the module coordinator whether to make these lectures available online or not. I personally do not record lectures anymore for a variety of reasons, but I would also strongly recommend to attend the lectures in person, because our lectures at LLM level are much more interactive, and participation is a key element of these lectures. And in such a constellation where one person joins online and the other students are in the room, this participation element suffers significantly. So if you do want to study an LLM part-time, I would strongly recommend to make sure you can actually attend at least some of the sessions. Having said that, I do permit students to take my courses, although they cannot attend, and then do ensure that they get sufficient reading materials. But I personally, as a matter of principle, don't record sessions at postgraduate level anymore. That was different during COVID. But some other of my colleagues handle that differently. So I would always recommend discussing that with the lecturer before, how participation can be enabled, and I'm happy to have a private conversation on that later on. Two questions I will simply pick out, which I think are fairly important, and I've answered them many times before. Are there any scholarships available? One of the most important and most frequent questions we get. Yes, there are scholarships available, which is the good answer. For some of them, you might simply be too late. So our very, very highly coveted scholarships are currently being distributed, the Global Excellence Scholarships. If you apply for next year, you might be eligible for that. But most of our students do qualify depending on their GPA for our international student scholarships, which are reductions up to 15 to 20% of the enrollment fee. The very, very short answer is if you go to UCD scholarships, you can sort depending on the course that you want to take and where you're coming from, the scholarships that are available to you. So there's a very simple tool on our website. Simply, if you Google UCD Dublin and scholarships, you'll be directed to that. And there are all the information that you need on our scholarship offering.
Thanks, Justin. We really have a lot of questions here. So if anybody sees, any of my colleagues see questions that they would like to jump in on there. I'm not sure if you're back with us, Ian, are you?
I don't know.
Do you know, we can hear you, but your sound is very low. No. It's not like Ian to be silent now.
Can you hear me now, Una?
Yes, we can hear you, yeah.
I don't know what went wrong there. Anyway.
The sound is relatively low though, but we can hear you, yeah. Okay.
So I've answered. There've been a few questions about criminology. I've answered them in the chat.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to answer a few of these here as I go along. Apologies, I mentioned it earlier. We couldn't have every program director here because we've got 11 programs. So someone's asking about the LLM and EU law and governance. And our colleague, Professor Dagmar Sheikh, would very much like to speak to someone interested in this in terms of you're asking about the lecture hours, how it's assessed, etc. What I'm going to do is I'll give you her email, but she isn't on the call today, but she definitely would be interested in hearing from you. There's a couple of other questions about, if an applicant applies for 2 programs, can they choose which they prefer, or are they only eligible depending on how admissions offer? No, I mean, the reality is you need to accept one of them and you choose one yourself. At a certain point, you'll be asked to pay a deposit. So I don't think anybody would want to pay a deposit on 2 different options. So you'll have to choose which is your favorite program and proceed with that one. There's a question about human rights law. We have colleagues who would be very keen to speak to you about that. I will answer that one separately there. If I don't get a chance to answer all of these questions too, because some of them requires me kind of sourcing links for you, please email me. As I said, I think I put it into the chat there, the email address, lawpostgraduate@ucd.ie, and the colleagues in question in human rights and in EU law and governance will definitely get back to you with answers to your questions. Okay, so we've answered registrations are open now for all of our programs. All of our registrations are open up until the 31st of, our applications are open up until the 31st of July. So you still have time to apply, but there have been years where the Masters in Common Law has actually reached capacity. So I would suggest with that in particular, more than probably any of the others, it is the one that I would apply to sooner rather than later. And then just back to the scholarships, as we mentioned, the 31st of May, if you've applied before the 31st of May, you'll be in consideration for that. Okay. And then somebody's just asking about the difference between part-time versus full-time. You may have answered that, Justin, to an extent on an LLM. Really, it's...
I quickly jump in. So part-time essentially means you spread out your degree instead of 1 year over 2 years, ideally. That means your course load is reduced proportionately. So you will not be taking 3 courses every semester, but 1 or 2 courses per semester. And then you can decide how you will space it out. It also means the fees will be spaced out. But otherwise, there really is no significant difference other than you kind of like expand the entire process from 1 to 2 years, which does make it more manageable if you're working full-time or part-time. Obviously, this is why we have it. The other options, of course, if you encounter scheduling difficulties, is to take for most of our LLMs a January start. If you don't want to start in September, we also admit students for the January window, and then you would start essentially half a year later than compared to your colleagues. The majority of students, however, do start in September.
And just to add to that as well, the modules, sometimes part-time students think that the modules might be offered outside of the normal teaching hours, that they might be available in evenings, maybe on Saturdays. That isn't the case for our program. So the part-time students are in class with the full-time students, and most modules are in 2-hour blocks, and 9 to 11, 11 to 1, 2 to 4, 4 to 6. But it's, as Houston was saying there, with the timetabling, part-time students, when they study the timetable, they sometimes find they can do 2 modules on the same day. So they've always been able to organize their work commitments around the timetable. If it doesn't work out one semester because they're only doing 1 or 2 and it's spread out over 2 years, if there's any problem, it's generally easy to overcome it.
Okay.
Sorry, Una, just add in there that the MSc is only available on the MSc in International Law and Business is only available on a full-time basis. There isn't, as things stand at the moment anyway, there isn't a part-time option, but there is a January start option. So most students start in September, but there is also a January start option.
Okay, and then I just see a question about specific scholarships, the Doreen Fitzgerald Capriani Masters Scholarship and the James Healy Scholarship. Yes, they are applicable to incoming students, and just to reinforce, you just need to have applied before the 31st of May. You don't need a specific application for that, but just, I mean, obviously when you fill out your application with care based on the assumption that you want to be in consideration for one of these prestigious Masters scholarships. Okay. I think we're pretty well reaching our 15 minutes here. There are still some questions which I hope we've addressed most of them. And if I haven't said it once, I've said it a few times. Please email us on lawpostgraduate@ucd.ie with any questions that we didn't get to. And I apologize, as I say, we only could cover so many of the programs today. And we have people from Ireland, from overseas, some already with offers and some just looking into the idea of applying to us now. So hence the diversity of questions and you know, the wide discussion we've had. But I want to thank all of my colleagues. I think that was a very interesting session. We have recorded today's session, so anybody who wants to listen back to the presentations or to the answers to the questions, this will be available in a couple of days' time. I'll email it. I'll email a link to anybody who registered, and we will then be posting it on our YouTube channel in due course. So with that, unless anybody has anything to add, I think we might end the webinar for the day. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.